I look now and think about what we've got coming up, and I think for me, I dread more games like Luton, Forest, and Fulham. Not dread them. I think we're capable and should be able to go and smash them. But you know that if you're going to pick like games where it's been a frustrating watch as a Tottenham fan, most of them this season have come against teams that sit from about 9th to about 16th. And like teams like Wolves, teams like West Ham, teams like Brighton that are kind of that just complicate the issue where you think you should be going in with full of confidence but you're not. You're outplayed at times. Whereas I worry people saying, "Oh, we've got this horrible run in: City at home, Arsenal at home, Liverpool away." Liverpool away is going to be a really, really difficult day. But I think that Tottenham, if you look at if you zoom out a little bit and remember the games like across the season, I think we've been at our best, or the moments that I remember of being absolutely sensational football came against the teams that have confidence to not worry. I spoke about. On a video this week, I spoke about the difference between exploitative managerial tactics and game theory optimal, which is a poker term. Ange Postecoglou is game theory. He cares about himself, playing the best version of himself. If he absolutely smashes and optimizes his version, then it shouldn't matter who you're playing against. Whereas you have managers like Glasner and Unai Emery that are exploitative, right? They'd rather change and pivot their tactics. And I think you'll see the same with the Fulham manager this weekend. They're going to adapt to Tottenham.
100%.
Whereas the likes of Pep Guardiola and Arteta and Jurgen Klopp, they're going to say, no, they're game theory optimal managers as well. They play their version and don't really matter. They don't really mind too much. And so I wonder what your thoughts are. Have recent performances, and when you think about that, if you agree with that, do you see the run-in against these big teams being an opportunity to see Tottenham at their very best?
I would say, Sean, it very much depends the team we're putting out. I mean, I would have loved to have seen Spurs Man City without a centre-back pairing of Emerson Royal and Ben Davies, for example. How would we have fared? Would it have been a different event? Will it be tricky to have no Mickey van der Ven? What happens if Maddison gets injured? We can't. We have to hope, or I hope, that we go into these games with a fully fit squad, and we can damage anybody in our moments. I do think, though, that the way we invert, when you've got teams like Bournemouth who are really trying to exploit it and know how to counter it, I wonder what a team like Man City in the Cup at home, they knew we didn't have any creative midfielders, so they pressed us and compacted us. That wasn't the normal Pep football. He just strangled us, right? And knew at the end of the day they'd get the win. It wasn't the expansive football. Arsenal will come at us, expansive football, hyper press. I think managers will tweak it somewhat, Sean. I don't think they're just going to say, well, this is how we play. I don't believe that. That's how Ange is. That's how Ange likes to play football. What was quite interesting there was his tactic was, well, he said, I told the boys that I expect Villa to tire in the second half after the game during the week. That's from his lips. Mm-hmm. Now, is that really a tactic? All right, so if Villa weren't going to tire because they didn't play that game in the week, how, in my head, I'm thinking, how would he have addressed that game? Would he have addressed that game any different to how he did? Contain them, be in control, pass the ball, make them run around a lot, and then in the second half go for the jugular. Would he have been any different? I don't know. I don't think he would have been. I don't know what you think.
Look, I think Maddison spoke on this a few weeks ago, didn't he? That they were speaking about why Tottenham score so many goals in the second half, but specifically late on. That's because he says they do work to tire teams out, and it does work in our favour in that regard. But look, on what Sean's question, for me, look, a lot of them performances that we've been sort of a bit disillusioned with or a bit annoyed with have come when we haven't had a fully fit squad.
Correct.
Yeah. We had a fully fit squad at the weekend. We absolutely pumped Villa all game, dominated possession. I haven't seen us control possession that good in a long time, game managed in a long time. But we had a fully fit squad out there. We had probably, some would argue maybe our best team out there. And it's a problem that I keep highlighting all the time. When you rely on some of the squad players we've had over the last few years, they're just not good enough. When they come in, performances drop, everything else drops. And look, I said a couple of weeks ago, Andrew has a big task in readjusting the attitude for all the players coming back, getting them to get back to what he believes in. And we're starting to get back to that now. He's done a good job. Other managers have lost that in the past. Conte, Mourinho, stuff like that. But Andrew's been able to pick it back up and rejuvenate it. Look, for me, do we have troubles breaking down low block teams? Yeah, I think we do.
Yeah.
But that becomes because we don't try enough. We're just passing the ball side to side in one horseshoe. We don't. When you're playing against low block teams, you have to pop shots from distance, draw people out, try balls over the top, this, that, and the other, draw people out. We don't do that. We play everything in front of them, and we make it very easy for them. And we're not tiring them out either by passing it side to side. That's exactly what they want you to do. So all they have to do is the bare minimum movement from left to right. But them low block teams, if we really want to tire them out, the way to do that is by drawing them out, popping shots off and stuff like that. You have to make them scared to drop off you, basically. You have to show that you've got quality. You can't drop off me. We don't do that at times, and I think that's our biggest Achilles heel. But look, going into next season, we should have the squad addressed, should have more players. And the reason why I say the squad is, look at Dragusin coming off the bench. Last year, if that was a Sanchez, a Dyer, or anything like that, every fan would have moaned, the team would have sat back, everyone would have got a little bit jittery and nervous. We brought Dragusin on. Me personally, I didn't have that feeling whatsoever. And I think that goes a long way.
So I'm just going to ask Dave and you, Sean, right? The thing that baffles me a little bit about Ange Ball in these last few weeks was under Conte, we were risk adverse. Okay, every player looked like they were scared to make an errant pass, and since Ange arrived, he's told us, he's told the fans, he's told the players, I want you to take risks. I want you to take a gamble. So, we saw at the early stage, Romero making passes out the back that were intercepted and led to goals. I used to see people going on about Papasar losing the ball in the middle of the park because he would try to make a pass that didn't come off. I love that because that's progressive football. But what I don't understand is when we get to the edge of the box, we suddenly become risk adverse.
Yeah.
And I don't understand that.
It's because they don't want to track back. It's because they don't want to track back.
The horseshoe, the whole time, right? If you took the risk of running at defenders, whether it's straight on or take on your man, draw the foul, or, hit the ball, hit a first-time cross, take a risk. Because we've all seen it when a ball comes in and the defender's running back, he can skew a pass, he can go in his own net, or it can bounce out favourably for one of our other attackers or midfielders. So that's the one part about Ange Ball I don't get. We are much more risk adverse in the final third against a low block. And I don't know why, because we're not in any other part of the pitch.
I think that sometimes, and look, I mean, I don't know. I never played football to any level. I kicked the ball around the playground a few times, so I don't know. But from a football armchair supporter's perspective, I think sometimes, it's an oversimplification of the concept of, why are we doing the horseshoe football thing? I think that, a lot of teams do it. A lot of teams are looking for the clinical pass. I completely agree with the idea that more pot shots should be taken, because
or the odd risk, not all
the odd risk here and there. But ultimately, if it doesn't work out, you're going to get the immediate reaction of frustration from the fans, and fan reactions are things that I'm going to come to in a moment, because there's lots to talk about on that topic. But I think that none of the players, like some of the players, have got a desire to do it. I think Papsar is willing to do it on his day. Yeah. Pedro Porres certainly is.
Yeah.
You could look to some of our forwards and say, why aren't you doing more of it? Brennan Johnson, Pedro Kulusevski, they've all got good shots on them when they want to take it. Richarlison. But ultimately, I think it's just in their mind, in the moment, they're thinking, is there a better option somewhere else than what I've got? And if the horseshoe football results in players just tracking across and blocking an obvious shot, then they're probably going to sit there and in that, just like I say, in that tiny moment, they're thinking, if someone needs to have a shot, given what I've got in front of me, it's probably not me. And there's a reason why. I don't think it's necessarily a fear or like a lack of.
Start shouting at people to make runs in behind and start lobbing the ball over the top
Correct.
and stuff like that. There's other ways of doing it.
Right. The Dave is right. The Dave is 100% right. You know, I 100% agree with him. You want to play horseshoe football? Go ahead. Be my guest. We're happy. We'll just sit here. Carry on. Right?
I do.
You know, teams are happy happy for you to play that football. Wolves all day long, mate. Carry on playing that ball because we'll find a break and we'll score. You know, Villa nearly did it. Villa nearly did the same as they did against Wolves. We nearly had the same thing where they broke away. All I'm asking for here is we're not risk adverse passing out the back, right? Which you know, the payment against if you screw up is far more severe than losing the ball on the edge of the opponent's box, John. That's all I'm saying.
I hear you. I hear you. I don't disagree, but just trying to throw the other side of the coin out there because. On the other hand, this is the devil's advocate.
Look, in the final third is where ideally every football manager wants their players to take them risks, not become the most safest. You know, like, I think Johnny's right on that point. But look, I think the reason why we were doing that for quite some time is because the amount of times we were being hit on the counter, teams were executing the counter attack. And when you start, you know, going into them 5-10 yard passes, it's risk averse football. And you're not taking them risks because you don't want the ball to be turned over and hit on the counter. You don't want to run backwards. And I think that becomes a large part of it. There's no surprise when we have played like that, they come out the second half flying out the blocks because they've obviously gone in there. They've got a bollocking. My problem is what have you got to be afraid of? It's only a game of football. You know, take the risks, take the opportunity. That's what makes the difference between a great player and an average player. Someone who's not afraid to get on the ball. There's many ways you can do that. Get on the ball, look to take your players on, look to beat your man, create space. We don't do that. Get runners in behind, you know, different runners all together. Get a player to stand offside, come out, and another one to run in. Create different avenues, you know, to be able to break these teams down. We don't do that. Everyone sets up in a big U and then 5 pass for 5 yard, 5 yard, 5 yard, 5 yard. And then automatically it comes back again. Hopefully that gets eliminated from the process, and hopefully we start taking a lot more risks in the final third.
It will always be a part of the process, mate.
On the pitch.
I genuinely think it will always be a part of the process. I think because you need variety, right? To take the other side of the coin. I think that if you move to a different situation, that there's moments when Arsenal do horseshoe football. I remember watching Arsenal against Nottingham Forest away. In that first half, I was like, they're doing the horseshoe football thing. They're doing what a lot of teams do at Nottingham Forest. You know, a lot of teams are just very good when they're playing against, like they know Nottingham Forest and teams like Wolves, teams like West Ham, teams like not Brighton so much, they do their own thing. But as you go down the pecking order, teams like Fulham, they know that at least sort of 65-70% of the teams in the league are better with the ball than they are, and that their best way of figuring it out is to sit deep with a bank of 5 and a bank of 4 and one guy who's loose at the top end of the pitch. And so they drill that stuff all day, every day, because they know that in the majority of games in the Premier League, they're going to be on the receiving end of 65% possession. And so even the very best teams that are better than us or more advanced in their project, even Manchester City do horseshoe football at times. I agree with you that you need to throw in a little bit more curveballs. You need to keep people guessing by having some pot shots from 25 yards or flick some balls over the top and get the players to run in. I've been an advocate, like I said a few times in the last couple of weeks. I think there's times when if you're playing against teams that compress the midfield, like Villa did, like Palace did, I think players like Timo Werner, more so than Kulusevski, because Werner's got the pace, they need to drop deep 5 yards and then start the run from a position of depth so that it gives Romero or Bentancur or Bissouma or whoever an obvious peripheral visual of what's going on. And then you do that once, even if it doesn't work out, that fullback he's got another thing to think about. I think variety keeps everybody on their toes, both your team and the opposition. And I don't think we're doing it enough, but I still think that there's always going to be moments when you're doing horseshoe football, because you never know if the next best pass is the next best option.
Look, I hear you, but I also think we get suckered into it because we don't have the right type of player to break down low block oppositions. I go back to when we had someone like Luka Modric. You look at Man City when they've got De Bruyne. Man City players are constantly moving, making runs in and out, stuff like that. But De Bruyne can pick up the ball no matter where he's on the pitch, put it over the fullback's head straight onto the player's foot.
Isn't that why James Maddison's coming deep? Isn't that why Maddison came deep against?
But when he comes deep, he's passing it backwards and jogging off again.
Correct.
He's not actually getting on the ball and spraying it around. You know, that's not James Maddison. It's not the sort of player that he is. We miss that option. We don't have a player that can expand the play like that, a bit like what Luka Modric used to do for us. If anyone goes back, watch Luka Modric. The ball will be at a player's feet. He'd run by him, take it off and pop it over. Ball will come back across. He'd get on it again, pop it over, trying to make things happen. We do not have that player.
Well, what's the difference then between him and James What are you saying that James Maddison has that if it's not that?
His influence in the game, what Dave's saying is, right, and I totally agree. You know, I can only remember one game where he's come deep, where he's really influenced it, and it was against Bournemouth, where he had to pick up the ball. But I don't like him in that position, right? We do not need you picking up the ball, you know, off the back four. We don't need you in that position. Stop wasting your energy, right? You
understand why he's coming deep, right? It's because the midfield is so compressed that it takes the people that do have that responsibility, like a Bissouma or a Bentancur, maybe even though they're brilliant in a lot of things, maybe they can't beat the first man.
So I ask you the question. I asked you the question. I often feel that Ange Ball suffocates Maddison because it's so crowded. It's like Piccadilly Circus in the middle of the park. If the opposition also crowds out the middle of the park, it becomes difficult to manipulate the ball. So that's why you're 100%.
That's why he comes deep, right? That's why because he's the best. He's the best guy with the quickest feet to be able to break the path, like John McGinn did 3 times against us against Villa.
Well, he doesn't do anything with it. He just passes it back to the centre back. Go back and watch the Villa game. Drop deep to receive the ball. Gave it back to Van der Ven. It's like Van der Ven's giving it to you to progress it.
Look at the other games. Look at the Wolves games. The Wolves game is exactly the same. Look, I've had this conversation about Destiny, right? When I watched him at Udinese, right, he would pick up the ball wide. He would hug the touchline. He would run at players and then cut inside. He used to get so much pace and power coming in and cutting in. Players couldn't stop him. Now he's so inverted off all the time. When he does pick up the ball, he doesn't get that chance to drive as much as he did before because he's running into, like, you know, rush hour traffic every week. It's packed in there. You know, I'd like some diversity in our player in the middle of the park, whereby Maddison is afforded that time. I do not think. I agree with Dave.
Maybe Bergval's that guy, right, Johnny?
Yeah, but he might be, but he's 18, right? Let's be real, you know.
Is Conor Gallagher that guy?
He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. No, he's not the Messiah. He's a
He's a boy.
He's a talented boy. Now listen, look, he could be anything. I'm not going to say he's not going to come here and make a huge difference. I need to focus on the now, and right now, I don't see us in that final third taking enough risks. And as Dave said, Kevin De Bruyne has runners constantly going beyond that line, whether it's Alvarez, whether it's Foden, whether it's Silva, whoever it may be. They're constantly perpetual motion, trying to break that line. And what I see, and I'm sure what Dave sees, is the horseshoe where people aren't making those runs beyond. And is Maddison that type of player?
We ask why
I thought that's what he's supposed to. I thought he's supposed to be the creator in chief, the guy who's
a creator. He's a great.
Why can't you be a locksmith from deep? You know, that's the question, right?
I don't see him as that. I don't see him spraying like a Harry Kane pass.
I hear what you're saying. I do hear what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying. But he's better in the final third with that moment of magic, you know, like a kind of Odegaard. You don't see Odegaard coming down to the final third to pick the ball up off of somebody.
Odegaard's a better player. I think Odegaard is a cleverer player.
Careful, mate. Careful. You say that around these here parts, you get clipped.